Hello and welcome back. Before we get started, I just wanted to point out that there's not really any new techniques in this one, but what we are going to do is take these textures here and build a little puzzle encounter. And as usual, you can find the PDF file down in the description. Anyway, the first thing we'll need to do is make the room itself, and this is done in the usual way, and in this example, I've put exits on 3 of the 4 walls. However, if you're new to the channel, it's a pretty basic procedure, as all you really need to do is glue one of the floor textures to some double corrugated cardboard and cut it to size, and then do a similar thing with a few half-inch wide wall sections and simply glue those into place, like you can see here. So there you go, there's a short passage, and that's pretty much how I make most of the dungeon tiles. It usually takes longer for the glue to dry than it does to actually assemble them. Okay, next we're going to take the strip of the stone texture and cut that to a length of 1.5 inches. Then we'll glue that around a large drinking straw, and then cut it to size. Next we'll take each of the octagon shapes, glue those to some thick cardboard, and cut those to size as well. Then, once that's done, we can use the hot glue gun to glue the straw on top of the smaller octagon, and then we can glue the larger octagon on top of that. And with any luck, that should result in something that looks like this, and we can use this as a kind of frame that the puzzle pieces will slot into. And since I just mentioned the puzzle pieces, here's a similar plinth with a few bits of treasure and several puzzle pieces scattered on top, and here's another one that's empty. But if you'd prefer that the puzzle pieces were found on the floor, maybe in a different room or scattered throughout the dungeon, then I've also provided a little token that you can use instead. Oh, and you can also find a decorative door in this PDF, and this particular one was made in the same way as the sci-fi doors. So yeah, that's all of the terrain pieces done. Now we'll just need to make a player handout to go along with them. So, the first thing that we'll need to do is glue the dark texture to some corrugated cardboard, and then do the same thing with the lighter texture, but we'll also cut this one to size. Then we can apply plenty of glue to the back of the top piece, and place that on top of the bottom piece, and weigh the whole thing down with a heavy book until it dries. Okay, so once it has dried, all we'll need to do is cut the bottom piece to size, and as you can see, we didn't need to be super accurate when gluing them together, as all that's going to be showing is the central cutaway. And when we're done, we should end up with something that looks like this. Right then, the last thing that we'll need to make are all of the individual puzzle pieces, and to do this, we'll just glue all of those to some foam core, or cardboard, or anything like that. But when we cut those out, rather than cutting the sides straight down, like this, I like to angle the blade a little. So, in effect, I'm cutting the bottom of the piece slightly smaller than the top, just so that all of the pieces fit together nicely. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but this kind of thing. Actually, here's a little picture that shows it a bit better. Right then, as I say, black foam core is probably the best option for these, but you can also use corrugated cardboard as well, as I know that some people have problems getting hold of cheap foam core, so here's my own cardboard version, just to show that you really don't need to use anything special. Okay, so I'll just speed this part up as I put all the puzzle pieces into place. And there we go. And if you're wondering, how will the players know what the puzzle is supposed to look like? Well, it's the same pattern that appears on the floor tile, so it should be pretty easy to figure out. So yeah, that's how to put all of the pieces together, and here you can see a picture of how you might like to put it to use. So let's assume that our party of brave adventurers enter the room and head down the steps to find the empty plinth near the middle of the chamber, the one with the slot cut into it, and at that point you could probably give them the player handout. And if they then check out the other two, you could then lay out the relevant puzzle pieces on the tabletop. However, as soon as they interact with any of these, that's when the encounter begins. So perhaps the door slams shut behind them, and poisonous gas starts to fill the room, or maybe the brazier bursts into flames, and at the beginning of each combat round, some kind of minor elemental creature is summoned into the chamber. It then becomes a race to solve the puzzle, otherwise more and more creatures will manifest each and every round, or there is only so many rounds that a character can hold their breath before they succumb to the poison, and so on. And one way of combining the skill of the player with that of the actual character might be to have the main PC, that's the one that's attempting to solve the puzzle, have them make some kind of intelligence roll on each of their turns to determine how many puzzle pieces they can interact with on that particular combat round. And obviously, you could give them a bonus to the roll, or advantage, or whatever, if another character is helping them out. So, if using 5e for example, you might say that it's an action that requires a DC 12 intelligence test. And even if they fail, I would personally still allow the players to pick up and place 1 or 2 puzzle pieces that combat round. However, if they pass the test, let them play around with 3 or 4 pieces, and if they pass by 5 or more, maybe allow them to have 5 or 6. Then simply repeat the process each combat round until the puzzle is solved. But yeah, that's just one idea, and it's up to you how you want to work out the exact mechanics, but the idea is that 1 or 2 characters can try to solve the puzzle each round, while either the clock is ticking, in the case of the room filling with poison gas, or while the rest of the party are trying to fend off the creatures that are continually being summoned into the room, if that makes sense. So yeah, once the puzzle is solved, the creatures might disappear, the gas dissipates, or whatever, and again, it's pretty much up to you to decide on what the puzzle actually does. I mean, it might open a secret vault, or provide passage further into the dungeon, or the room itself might have lots of wall niches filled with bits of treasure that the PCs are now free to investigate at their leisure. Basically, whatever suits the type of adventure that you're running. So, that's pretty much it for this episode. It's been a bit of a different kind of video, in the sense that it's included some terrain, a player handout, and an encounter idea, albeit a cheesy one, all kind of rolled up into one, but I hope that there's something there that you can still find useful. Anyway, all that's left to say is all the usual YouTube nonsense about liking and subscribing and hitting the bell icon and so on, but yeah, thanks for watching, let me know what you think of this episode, and bye for now.